Fasting can be a powerful tool for fighting cancer, but simply skipping meals doesn't mean you're getting the benefit. If you're going to put in the work, you want to make sure you're doing it right. Dr. Amy here, and as a 9-year cancer survivor and a cancer researcher, I'm showing you the 5 signs that autophagy is actually fighting cancer. Here are the exact signs that you need to watch for to know you're actually doing it right. Starting with number 1, autophagy doesn't start the moment you skip breakfast. Your body is incredibly smart. It will always use the easiest fuel source. This means glucose in your bloodstream, then stored glycogen in your liver and muscles. Only once those stores are depleted does your body shift. That's when it goes into deeper repair. For most people, this shift happens between 17 to 24 hours. That's when autophagy really starts to ramp up. Earlier than that, your body's primarily still operating off of stored carbohydrates. This has come from the food you've consumed. Now, as someone with doctorate level training in this area, I want to be really clear about this. A 12-hour overnight fast is very healthy. It stabilizes insulin. It supports metabolic flexibility. There are clear studies to show that an extended overnight fast reduces the risk of a breast cancer recurrence. But if your goal is deeper cellular cleanup, as a cancer survivor, cancer thriver, it usually does take longer than an overnight fast. Now, look, this doesn't mean that longer is always better, especially if you're already exhausted. When I was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer, my exhaustion was not mild. It was crippling. I remember thinking that if someone told me that I needed to fast for 24 hours, I couldn't do it. I would not have had the reserves to do it safely. That's why we always match a cancer prevention strategy to the body that's right in front of us. Now, this type of prolonged fasting is not something that I routinely recommend to people who are in cancer treatment or immediately following their cancer treatment. They need to correct their energy first. Once you correct your energy, then we can start looking at fasting. Okay, but on to number 2, mental clarity. As glycogen runs out, your body begins producing ketones. Ketones are an alternative fuel source to fat. They're incredibly efficient for the brain. Many cancer survivors and thrivers describe this phase as like a calm focus. Brain fog lifts, thoughts become clearer. Energy feels steady rather than spiky. There's real physiology behind this. Ketones produce less oxidative stress than glucose. They provide a more stable fuel source. And this metabolic shift often overlaps with this increase in autophagy. In my clinical experience and my oncology research, this is one of the earliest signs. Your body is shifting into repair mode. But I also want to normalize something. Not everyone is going to get this euphoric clarity, especially if you're healing from treatment. Managing hormone therapy, rebuilding muscle mass, that all plays a role. Now, inside the Cancer Freedom Program, I work with a woman that desperately wanted that mental clarity. She kept hearing about it online from people who had these prolonged fasts. Instead, she felt irritable and foggy when she fasted. When we looked deeper, her protein intake was too low. Her blood sugar was unstable. Once we corrected her overall nutrition, then short strategic fasts really did feel good. They were supportive, not stressful. That's the difference between copying a trend and having a personalized strategy designed for you. Okay, on to number 3. Mild fatigue, but not exhaustion. Autophagy is a repair process. Repair takes energy. If you feel slightly lower energy during a fast, that can be normal. Your body is reallocating resources. You may feel calmer, less stimulated. You might feel slightly quieter internally. But if you feel wiped out, dizzy, shaking, profoundly fatigued, that's not a badge of honor. That's a signal. Autophagy doesn't happen in like a vacuum. It requires adequate nutrition, adequate sleep, and a body that feels safe enough to repair. If your system is running on empty, your first priority is restoring energy. This means correcting an iron deficiency, if that's present, optimizing your protein intake, balancing macronutrients, supporting your sleep cycle, and rebuilding your metabolic resistance. Fasting is a tool. It's not the foundation. Okay, but on to the next one, and this one is powerful. Signs of ketosis. Ketosis and autophagy are not identical processes, but they often do overlap. As insulin drops and fat burning increases, you may notice physical signs. Some people develop slightly fruity or metallic breath. This is due to acetone. That's a byproduct of ketone production. You may notice a reduced appetite. Hunger can feel quieter and more manageable. You might feel more thirsty because glycogen often holds on to water. When glycogen is depleted, water is released. These are all signs that your metabolism is shifting. Okay, but here is the nuance. Ketosis does not automatically mean deep autophagy. It simply means you're burning more fat and producing more ketones. Autophagy influences insulin levels. If insulin remains elevated, even in a fasted state, autophagy will be blunted. Okay, so that brings me to the next sign. Hunger comes in waves. Hunger is driven in part by a hormone. Now, this hormone rises in predictable cycles. That's often why you feel hungry at usual meal times. Early in a fast, hunger can spike. But after 12 to 18 hours, it usually stabilizes. Sometimes it even fades away. It comes in waves, it builds, it peaks, and then it passes. But I also want to acknowledge something important. Cancer survivors already struggle with appetite. Some experience reduced hunger because of their treatment. Others overeat due to stress. So we want to be careful how we interpret appetite and hunger. This is not purely a metabolic signal. You need to relearn your body after cancer. You need to relearn your hunger cues as well. Now let's talk about something equally as important. Signs autophagy may not be happening. You can technically be fasting and still not activating cellular repair. If your blood sugar remains high, autophagy is suppressed. Insulin is a storage hormone. If insulin is elevated, your body interprets that as a fed state. Now, insulin resistance is common, especially after certain types of chemotherapy and steroids or weight gain because of treatment. If your eating window is full of refined carbohydrates, processed food high in sugar intake, then insulin can remain elevated for hours. Chronic stress also plays a major role. Elevated cortisol can raise your blood sugar, even without food. Sleep deprivation does the same. So if you're fasting, but only sleeping like 4 or 5 hours a night, constantly under stress, consuming a lot of refined carbohydrates, your body, it might never truly shift into repair mode. That's why metabolic context actually matters more than the fasting clock. It's not simply about skipping food or skipping meals. It's about creating the right internal environment. So how do you maximize autophagy safely? First, build your nutritional foundation. Prioritize whole foods, focus on vegetables, healthy fats, quality protein. These stabilize blood sugar and reduce chronic inflammation. Protein is especially important for cancer survivors and thrivers. Muscle mass is protective. It supports immune function, metabolic health, long-term resilience. Second, minimize refined carbohydrates. Get rid of ultra-processed foods. These spike insulin and make metabolic flexibility harder to achieve. And then third, improve sleep. Deep sleep enhances growth hormone release and cellular repair. If you're not sleeping well, this is the first thing you need to target. And fourth is to manage stress. Chronic stress keeps cortisol levels elevated. Elevated cortisol levels keeps blood sugar elevated. And elevated blood sugar suppresses autophagy. Breathwork, walking, strength training, having a structured recovery plan, this is all going to play a role. Inside the Cancer Freedom Program, I recommend these core pillars before you ever get to extended fasting. Now, the same cancer thriver that I mentioned earlier, she believed in fasting. She thought that this was the missing piece. But what she actually really needed first was balanced macronutrients. She needed improved sleep and structured resistance training. Once her energy improved and her blood sugar stabilized, we introduced the occasional 24-hour fasting strategy. Not weekly, not aggressive, just occasionally. Her energy improved. Her metabolic markers improved. And most importantly, she felt in control and not depleted. That is the goal. Autophagy is a powerful cellular repair. It clears damaged components. It lowers inflammation. It supports brain and gut and immune function. But more is not always better. For cancer survivors, metabolic nourishment comes first. You need that stability. The real key is not just fasting. It's about creating a metabolic environment that allows your body to switch into repair mode. Okay, so now that you know about fasting, the next thing that you need to know about is what to eat during your eating window. That's exactly why I'm linking up this next video for you here. Click the link here and I'll see you in there.